Okay, it's about 6:30. I call this meeting in order.
Ms. Ryan,
Here.
Ms. Kaplan.
Announce the agenda. I guess you guys got it, right? Okay.
Okay, so this is going to be a really informal workshop. You've got several packets in front of you. I hope you had some time to look over them. So this big packet here that says information boards, you're going to use that to help you answer some of the questions in the survey. So the first exercise is this general survey. And it has a series of questions in it. Let's go ahead and walk through the information boards, though. Let me kind of give you some tips on what we've got here. So the very first map is the future land use vision. So on your left side, that's showing what our current future land use map looks like. And on the right side, the map is showing you anywhere that it's colored blue, that's in the coastal high hazard area. And anywhere that's this yellow or orangish color, that means, or the green color, that means that the countywide plan allows greater density than our current plan does. So we would be able to increase densities in those areas that are not colored white. But overlaying it with the coastal high hazard area is kind of implying that maybe those are not the best places to be increasing density. And so the next map shows you the coastal high hazard area.
Now we're on board G, right? Next one is,
Yes.
That's when you talk about?
Board G, yes.
Okay.
Next one is coastal high hazard area. And this is just showing you in a little more detail where the coastal high hazard area is. The next one in this packet, board H, is flood zones. It's showing you the difference between the 2020 and 2021 flood zones. They changed slightly. The next board I, shows tree canopy coverage, wetlands, uplands, and environmental lands, and heat severity. So these are things that we need to consider when we're talking about how we're going to develop in the future. The next board J, shows our parks, recreation, and open space, and the minutes of walking it would take to get there. So the dark pink is 15, and as it gets lighter, goes to 10 to 5. And then board K is our historic districts and resources. Cultural resources and historic resources are not a required element of the comprehensive plan, but we currently have one, and we intend to continue to do so. And then finally, the last page of these information boards is just giving some highlights on different things that we do as a city, and you know, we need to think about, are we going to continue these things? How do we build on them? How do we make them all work together? So those are your boards. This exercise, the only one that's in regular 8.5 by 11 paper, that's a general survey. So if you want to take the time now to go ahead and start filling out this survey, if you'd like to discuss any of the questions as a board, that's why we're doing it as a board like this. So if you're not sure how you feel about something and would like to talk about it, then go ahead and bring it up.
Yeah, let's see. Now we find it. Okay, got it. Now, how did you want to handle that? Do you want to go point by point, or?
Well, we can go question by question if you want.
Okay.
Yes.
Because I've actually already filled that out.
You've already filled it
But
out?
I needed some clarification on some things.
And that's exactly why we're here. So if you want to get some, that's maybe a good way to start if,
Well, if I may, Focus Area 1, Craft Your Community. Very first question, how would you feel if the following uses were allowed in single-family residential areas of the city where they are not allowed now? So is this saying that you would, not you, but that it would be possible to have commercial use in a residential area?
It is possible we could change the land use to allow certain areas to have,
Okay. Are there, on the ordinances now, like say somebody wanted to have a pet groomer next door to me. Right now, they can't. Is there anything in the existing ordinances that allows for conditional uses?
it would depend on the district you're in.
In general, are there conditional uses available for, well, should I give you an address where I am? And
I mean, I guess I could answer that, like, so the western part of the city is largely single-family residential, right? And no, there's no other conditional uses
so
except
there's
for.
no conditional use? Somebody couldn't have
No,
a business out of their home?
Yeah, so we do have home occupations and conditional home occupations. But there are limitations on that. Something like what you're talking about, that would have a lot, a certain number of people coming to a residence aren't allowed either way. But that's what we're asking here. Home office, pretty much allowed unless you're getting a lot of clients and visitors there, things like that. When a person does a home occupation, they sign an affidavit that says, yeah. So
Okay.
this is asking, would some of that
That's how it
be
is
expanded?
now. And what this is asking is if we would basically, and I might be oversimplifying, but basically doing away with conditional uses and just let people open a salon or a pet groomer
Well,
without
we aren't
any-
really asking the mechanism here. So you might expand conditional uses to allow a little more than is allowed. Or you might retract. As far as the mechanism, that can be figured out later. We're just asking the general question here.
Well, in general, put me down for an unhappy.
Okay, so for instance, you would
Well, yeah, okay.
even be unhappy with a community
Well,
garden.
For the salons, barbers, pet groomers, I said unhappy. For convenience store, grocery store, I put unhappy. For coffee shops, small cafes, I put neutral. You might be able to live with that. Home office, I said happy. Childcare, I said unhappy. Community gardens, urban agriculture, I said happy.
Okay, that's wonderful. So it's just, in these areas where currently they are single-family residential, that has to be the primary use, so.
But I would, in general, even though I might be happy for a couple of these, by the way, I hate that, happy, unhappy, neutral. Anyway,
Understood.
yes, I would be much happier if there wasn't any changes where it started allowing commercial businesses in a residential area, in
Okay.
general.
This is
Because there's a reason that it's residential.
kind of like, the devil's in the details.
Well, yeah,
you know?
Definitely.
In other words, generally, yeah, you probably want to have a little mom and pop grocery store close, but, you don't want is to service that area. You don't want people coming in because now you have more traffic.
and how do you know it'll be limited to a little mom and pop?
Yeah,
If the things
yeah,
have changed,
you know.
somebody else is gonna open a much bigger place.
Things like, yeah, because traffic you don't want. Cut that down. Okay.
All right, do we have any more discussion on that question?
Well, I guess not.
Well, I was damn near unhappy on everything there. Got a couple neutrals though.
So going to the devil in the details, I think really the next question is pertinent to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you were to have a neighborhood plan for each neighborhood and the neighborhood came together and said, oh, this vacant area over here, that would be okay for a small store, limited to this much, open these hours, that kind of things. Do Do you think that'd be a good idea? Because the city is so different in, like, you know,
Yeah,
in
And
so
the
many
neighborhoods
different
are
areas.
different, which is why I put a happy for that one.
Okay.
To let it be more neighborhood specific, not very happy, but
Okay.
happy.
Okay.
I don't want to be a jerk, I'm sorry.
That's, you are,
oh,
it's
I don't
fine.
mind.
It's fine.
Sure.
So the next question, if we don't have any more discussion.
Yeah, we'll just go through them. I think that might be the
Okay.
easiest way.
So the next one is about housing. Should the city revise codes to address the need for resilient and sustainable housing with the following strategies? And we have allowing tiny homes on wheels. That's kind of one end of the spectrum. Incentivize replacement of old mobile home units with new units that are more resilient. Require or incentivize electric vehicle charging infrastructure in new residential construction. Require new housing developments to meet enhanced environmental standards. And incentivize subsidized housing attainable to lower income workers such as teachers, firefighters, nursing assistants, et cetera. So those are strategies that the city could pursue in its comprehensive plan to try and meet the housing crisis.
Okay, now, do we need to talk about this, or?
You can, you
I
absolutely
want to know what
can.
tiny houses, tiny
Well,
homes on wheels
I
are.
put
What-
yes on
Yeah,
all of them.
what about container
Good.
homes?
Yeah, except for the tiny homes, I just said with limits.
Oh,
But
I said no
otherwise, I
on
said
that.
yes to everything.
As long as the container home meets, correct me if I'm wrong, but as long as it meets Florida building standards, you can already do.
Yeah, no, you can do them in other areas in Florida. I just didn't know how tarpon was on those.
Yeah, as long as it meets building code standards.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, okay, what kind of incentives are they talking about?
Usually subsidies or waiving of fees, you could do streamlined permitting.
Yes. A mobile home, I don't care how you build it.
Density bonuses,
fly
there you go,
away.
that's a good one.
But put a container in place of it. It ain't going anywhere.
New housing
Huh?
developments.
Container home, replace
Yeah,
it with a container
home's
home.
different, yeah.
Because those things are indestructible. They put them on ships. They go through all kinds of
Oh,
stuff.
yeah, they are indestructible.
And they're beautiful. They make them beautiful these days.
They really do.
My son was looking at those. Yeah.
I want to do one, so I hope we do allow some of that.
Okay.
Okay, so the tiny homes on wheels, to answer your question, Rita, is kind of like, it's a mobile home,
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
I never heard that phrase.
Yeah.
but it's just a type of mobile home.
And again, I put with limits. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously,
Yeah.
yeah.
So the comprehensive plan really is getting at larger issues, and once you have the kind of vision and the direction that you're going in the comprehensive plan, then you go and you write the code to get to the details about that direction and how you're gonna get there. Okay, so the next one is transportation. Imagine you have $10 to spend on transportation, and maintenance of the existing system costs $7. That's, pretty realistic, if not generous. Pick your top 3 priorities on which you would spend your remaining $3. And you can see boards B and D for reference, and those are in exercise 3.
Yeah.
I don't have. If you'd like to take a look at those.
So we're in number 4, right? So
So, yeah, I mean, you can take a look at I think probably board B is most helpful. But just kind of showing our system as we have it now.
intersections and safety improvements would be my number 1.
Top 3. Yeah, that's pretty
I'm
easy.
tired of playing Frogger as I cross the street.
Okay, does anybody have any questions on these choices, or?
I put down bike lanes and trails, sustainable transportation improvements, and bike sharing service as where I would spend my $3.
All right.
I'll put general parking?
Well, it said pick 3.
Well, that's pretty-
I mean, we could
That's
have
pretty
picked all of them, frankly.
yeah.
All right, so for the next question, it's pick the top 4 places that need better walking and biking connections. And that, again, you can refer back to the exercise 3 packet.
Yeah.
If you'd like, but these are just more general, talking about schools, commercial areas.
I have a
Yep.
question. What are you gonna do with all this stuff? I mean, I don't know the flow of, how the flow of information goes and who this gets presented to.
Okay, so these surveys, these exact exercises are available on Connect Tarpon Springs. Please tell your friends and neighbors to take these surveys. You guys have to take it in this format because you're acting as a board. So we will compile the results of all the surveys that we receive from everyone, and it's going to be part of what's shaping the comprehensive plan, which will eventually be approved, hopefully at some point eventually be approved by the commissioners. So
So you have to tally up the different, what people say they want? Is that what you actually tally it, or?
yeah, yeah, it actually gets
Okay.
tallied up, and then when we're, so some of these questions have been directed from the information that we've already gotten from the strategic planning process. And these will help feed the process further, help us narrow it down a little bit more.
What if there's a tie? I know these are dumb questions, but what if there's a tie?
Well, then you can look at both things. It's
Okay.
just, I think really it's more about getting the direction that people are looking to go. It's not necessarily the very specific, it's not a general election. It's not, oh, this one got the most votes, so it wins. But,
Yeah.
if you're seeing that, for instance, an overwhelming number of people say that we need better walking and biking connections to our schools, which seems like a good idea,
That's a good
right?
idea, yep.
That would maybe be an area, we'd have a policy in the comprehensive plan to support that.
Okay.
Okay, so moving on to focus area 2, which is preserve and prosper. And the first question is about recreation and picking the top 5 most needed recreation facility types from those listed below. Does anybody have any questions on this one?
No, that's pretty straightforward. I had a launch pit, launch parking, no. Being in the fruits, oh yeah. We get a lot of trailers there.
All right, so the next question in this section is ranking the following potential city actions from 1 being your most needed to 5 what you think is least needed. So this is in terms of parks, recreation, conservation, and open space. New or enhanced programs, so that would be like, additional classes or sports leagues. New conservation lands, improving access to existing facilities, programs, and lands, new city or regional parks, or improving habitat quality of parks, conservation, and open space lands. So ranking from 1, what you think we need the most, to 5, what we're probably doing okay on. Anybody got any ideas or questions on that?
Well, I felt we needed to improve access to existing facilities as my number 1. Number 2 was improving habitat quality. 3 was enhancement programs. 4, new conservation. And 5, I put new city and regional parks. I'm not saying we have enough parks. You never have enough parks. But we probably need to deal with what we have first before we start adding new things.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Hey.
you got something else?
Oh, no. Okay.
No? Okay. We'll go on to number 3, which is conservation and natural resources. And this is another ranking one from 1 to most needed to 4 to least needed. Acquiring new environmentally sensitive lands, such as, wetlands or habitat. Restoring existing preservation and conservation lands. Establishing greenways and wildlife corridors, or maintaining and enhancing tree canopy. So 4 would be the least needed, 1 is the most needed.
And again, I chose restoring as number 1, and number 4 was acquiring new land. Same thing, I think we have to deal with what we have.
Yeah,
Exactly, yeah.
makes sense. All right, well, if there's no questions on that one, we'll move on to historic preservation and cultural resources. And this is really just yes, no, or I don't know. So do you think the city should expand the local historic district?
Yes.
Yes,
No. No, I
Yes.
don't.
yes.
Okay.
I liked that Publix building the way it was. And that we let them fill in the windows on and,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
It's also, just to speak to this a little bit, there's certain folks question, why does the historic district stop at Lemon Street?
What, why does what?
Why does the historic district, the local district, why is the boundary drawn at Lemon Street?
That's at Lime Street, I think.
That's a good question.
I think it's Lime.
And that there isn't really any answer to, right?
Yeah, but if you
It
expand
should
the
be
district,
the age of the building, or
Well, there's-
significance of the building.
There's lots of buildings south of Lemon Street that are, significant, so. That's just one area where we might look into. And up here by City Hall, there's older buildings that are not in the historic district, so. And the Greektown cultural property is, Greektown is not part of our local historic district. It has designation, but it doesn't have, when people want to do work in Greektown, they don't have to come before this board.
That's right, yeah.
So, that's just a thought there. So then increasing support for murals and other public art, if you think that's a good idea. Encourage and incentivizing rehabilitation and reuse of historic structures. Increasing awareness of the diverse historic and cultural resources in Tarpon Springs. And promoting cultural tourism. Anybody have any questions on those? Discussion? Okay. So the next one's coastal management, and again, it's just a yes, no, I don't know. Do you think the city should take some of these actions to react to the increased risk of flooding and severe weather? So the first one is incentivize climate adaptation for properties that experience frequent flooding. Invest resources to preserve or enhance waterfronts for water-dependent commercial uses. Invest resources to preserve or enhance waterfronts for recreation. Incentivize the use of natural elements to protect shorelines. Further restrict development in flood-prone areas. Acquire property to prevent repeat damage from flooding, storm surge, or wind velocity. Invest in coastal restoration projects, and require a minimum seawall elevation when a property with a seawall
I
is
have a question.
redeveloped.
Are
Yes,
there
ma'am.
any seawalls currently?
Pardon?
Are there any seawalls on any of the coast? Okay, I didn't know that.
Are there any seawalls
Walls.
So-
existing?
Yes.
So
exist-
there's,
Yes.
Okay,
sure.
like bulkheads on,
Yeah, like Craig, Spring Bayou, that's a seawall around Spring Bayou. Yeah.
Okay, I had a question about acquiring property to prevent repeat damage,
Yes.
flooding. Acquire property. Who's going to be acquiring the property?
would be the city.
Okay. What would they be doing with it then?
They'd probably be using it, so the idea is if you have an area where you just are continually experiencing flooding, is it a good idea to simply purchase the property and turn it into stormwater management or some other environmental use to mitigate? Because that property is going to continue to flood again and again.
Now, you're talking about private property, right?
Yeah,
Acquiring private property?
Any kind of.
Would that be, would you go in eminent domain on that, or just?
no,
fair-
no, I'm
fair
not
market
talking
value?
about forcing anybody to do anything. FEMA already has a program for this, you know, if you voluntarily want to. So it's, at a federal level, they already have programs that do this, where you can voluntarily sell your property because you're experiencing repeat damages. So this would be, should the city look into that? And the answer can be yes, no, or I don't know.
The only one that I put an I don't know on for that was further restrict development in flood-prone areas. I guess I just needed some clarification on that.
So that might be restricting the uses, further restricting the uses, further restricting density.
Okay. Just as an idea, you know, when the young lady was in here talking about the flooding and stuff like that, they were talking about Greektown, you know, the Greek docks, you know, and how we're gonna protect those. There's no way to protect them. If the water's coming up, the water's coming up. So you have two choices. One is put them on stilts, well, actually have three. Two, build a dike around it, or three, move it to high ground. And kind of thinking that the city might be better use of money to start buying some high ground. You know, because moving buildings is a lot cheaper than trying to save them if the water's coming up. See what I'm saying?
I have something I want to ask.
But that's my 2 cents.
No, that makes sense.
What does it mean to incentivize climate adaptation?
So that would be, so you know, we're doing our adaptation and resiliency study right now for the Greektown and the historic district. So that would be if, you know, we get the toolbox out of there of different things we could do, people could be able to perhaps apply for grants from the city to take some of these actions that we're talking about.
How do you fix a climate? A climate's a climate.
Oh,
Oh, do you
climate.
mean, I was thinking about weather and stuff.
No, climate adaptation, okay, so like things that you would build at your property
Oh, okay, I
to
know what you
adapt
mean.
to
Adapt
it.
to climate
To adapt
change,
to
not
it,
adapt
yes.
the climate.
I wish we could pay the climate to change, but, you know, no.
Yeah. Got it.
So another thing would be, if you're making these improvements on your property, you know, making sure that you're not taxed on the additional value, things like, you know, different programs like that. Any other questions on this one? Okay. So moving on to equitable economic prosperity. So what is the city missing or need more of? And you can check as many of these as you would like.
Okay, well, let's go with equitable. You're gonna have to define that a little bit more in 3 words.
Okay, well, when we're talking about equity, we're talking about everybody sharing in it. So, giving opportunities for people who traditionally have not had the same opportunities as, you know. So everybody sharing it, what do you think would make the city of Tarpon Springs better for everyone who lives in the city of Tarpon Springs? And more prosperous and have more opportunities, particularly economic opportunities, but also, you know, some of these things are just fun.
In entertainment venues, I mean, are we talking huge, you know, concert-type venues, or are we just talking somebody in their bar has a TV going?
Well, I think that one is more, I don't know that we would be looking for like Anomaly Arena or anything like that, if that's what you're getting at, but maybe having a small theater. You know, we don't have a theater, maybe a small theater or
Wouldn't that
something
be,
like that.
wouldn't that be driven better by the free market? Essentially, what somebody comes in and says, okay, I think you need a theater here. And he comes before the city council and says, I think you need a theater. And then because he's already checked on it, he probably does. But for the city to do something like that, I don't think so.
Oh, well, this isn't the city saying that the city is going to do this. It's just maybe trying to focus where you feel we should be looking to grow our economy, to develop. So, for instance, the whole theater idea. Somebody is not gonna, usually in businesses, hopefully, if they're gonna be successful, you know, you've done your research and you know that it's gonna be a successful business. Right now, I don't think there's any place in Tarpon Springs, correct me, you might be maybe in the downtown, but there's not really anywhere where you could put a theater.
No, there's not, because it's
That
mainly
would be
residential.
what the city could do, would be to change the zoning or the land use underneath it to allow for that kind of use.
Okay, and then they would go just with commercial, or could they specify it more?
Yeah, you could specify further, you know, what the use is within that district. So I think,
Yeah, and what this is getting at, so something like events, okay, that would be, you know, we're looking at a comprehensive plan with a future land use map and future land use categories that then have zoning categories under them. We have a special area plan, all those things. When you're looking at uses or activities like events, where in a comprehensive plan, you know, do you want to encourage some of this stuff, these things that you think will help the city's economy? Under other, I mean, it might be, you've heard a lot about small business, you know, things like that. You could specify something like that, but entertainment venues, good example. We have convention centers and civic in our code right now. So, well, I've only been here 5 years, but nobody's built a convention center yet. But maybe, you know, there's a hotel that wants to do a convention center with it or something, and there's a property that they could do that. So, you know, it would be a matter of kind of thinking to yourself, you know, what do you think would help the economy of the city, both for visitors and residents, people that are employed here, and you want to keep them here to work here, you know, like, and then looking at our comprehensive plan and how we could prioritize those things. That's kind of what this is getting at, to get a feel for what people think that the economy, city's economy needs.
To go.
So,
Thank you. That helps out.
oh, that's actually in the next question, small business.
yeah.
I didn't even see that till just now.
So the next one is equitable economic prosperity and lifelong learning. Public schools is a required element of the comprehensive plan, but I am hopeful that we can develop a lifelong learning element that would get at everybody, you know, continuing to learn throughout their lifetime and addressing things like programs that we have at the library, et cetera. And so this question is asking, should the city invest resources in further attracting, promoting, or supporting any of the following?
I only put, I don't know, on a few of them. Trade schools. I mean, I think I know what a trade school is. And are these questions I know nothing is, in stone here. But are there any implications here that new buildings would be built for these
Yeah, I think,
things like trade schools and manufacturing was the other one, and healthcare facilities? Those were the only three that I didn't know.
yeah, I think there is an implication that new buildings would, I mean, if we could reuse a building, that'd be great, but I think some of those things like manufacturing, there's opportunities for that north of the river. There's certain areas, things could be redeveloped.
And again, it would be limited to certain zoning districts.
Correct, yeah, we're not gonna plop a trade school in the middle of your single-family district. Unless
Yeah,
that's
if
something you
Question
want.
number one goes through, they will.
Unless that's something you want.
Okay.
Do we have any more questions on those? Hearing none. We're gonna move to our last area, which is strategic service, which is really getting at the planning and service delivery that we do as the city. Number one is capital improvements. If you could pick the top 5 most important capital improvement types from the list below, what we spend your tax dollars on. And they're all important to some extent.
Mm-hmm. I think part of it is looking toward the future. I marked electric vehicle charging and improved transportation alternatives, so people don't have to get in their car and drive everywhere.
It's been hurting us lately. Gas prices.
Yeah. Yeah, they're making the decision for us.
Okay. If we don't have any more questions on that, we're gonna go to the last question, which is, the city prioritizes improvements of critical significance to maintain vital services and infrastructure. Obviously, we wanna make sure that we've got our, running water and storm water and sewer and all of those things. But in addition to vital services and infrastructure, are any of these things listed below, any of these additional criteria, which of the 5 do you think are the most important to consider in addition to those, critical services?
Compliment.
So, one way to think about it, so for the accomplishment of established goals and objectives, so that's really what your comprehensive plan is doing, is setting up goals and objectives and strategies and policies. So say we had two projects that were of equal merit in every way and cost exactly the same. If one of them helped us achieve one of the goals of the comprehensive plan, should that be one of the things we consider when we pick between those two?
Okay.
All right, well, I'm gonna give you a couple minutes, and then we're gonna move on to exercise number 2. So this one's a little tricky. This is the one that has the clipped-on stickers on it. And you have one packet that has residential, and you have one packet that has commercial. So we've just divided the city into 5 different context areas. If you'll take a look at that first page, it kind of shows you the kind of character areas, the context of those, like I was talking about, West Tarpon is largely single-family residential. We've got schools over there and parks over there, but, and recreation, but no commercial facilities. So those largely, predominantly single-family areas are kind of grouped together. North of the river is kind of our wild card. We've got kind of everything up there. The county has it as a major employment center. So that's where we've had some residential growth over there. We could have additional commercial or industrial. And then 3, of course, is our downtown and the sponge docks, where we have all of our uses kind of mixed together. We've got residential and restaurants and everything all together. And then 4 is US 19, where you have some of your more intense commercial. And then East Tarpon is, again, primarily single-family residential. So the next page shows you infill development types, and that's what corresponds to these stickers. So in the residential, we have accessory dwelling unit, paired villa, fourplex, cottage court, townhome, a 3-story apartment building, and a mid-rise apartment building. Does anybody have any questions about those types of uses?
Yeah, I want to know what an accessory dwelling unit means.
So that would be kind of like a granny flat. That would be,
Okay.
maybe a garage apartment or a small, usually when you have an accessory dwelling unit, it would be limited to a certain square footage. Below that, small for either a renter or a family member or something like that. And so the cottage court, that's another one that sometimes people aren't familiar with. Those are actually single-family homes, but they're on a larger plot of land, and they share a courtyard in the middle, but they are single-family homes.
They
So-
share a courtyard in the middle. Oh, I see it. I know, I see what you mean.
So it's a lower density, it's not multifamily, but it's higher density, single family.
Mhm.
Okay, and then on the other side, we have our commercial or mixed use infill types. And we have pop-up commercial, which, could be carts, anything that's mobile. We have accessory commercial, and that would be, your primary use would be residential, but you would have a commercial use that's accessory to it. A corner store, live work, which would be some sort of combination of living and working units. An urban small footprint grocery store. So that would be, I'm trying to think of an example. It would not be as large as your typical grocery store, let's just put
Get
it that way.
Trader Joe's kind of size.
But I think even smaller footprint than that. Thinking about the Publix down in St. Pete, maybe in downtown St. Pete, where it's a smaller grocery store. And then we have 3-story mixed use, which could have any number of different things in it, and then your conventional shopping center. And what we're asking you to do in this exercise, the next couple maps show you all of those context areas that we talked about in the beginning. So if you would put your stickers where you think these kinds of developments, infill developments,
okay.
should go, and if you don't think any of them should go anywhere, don't put any stickers anywhere. But in your packet, you have all of those different types that we just talked about.
I got you.
So it's just on these context areas, area 1.
Right, so in area one,
Or
if,
5?
if you think it would be okay to have accessory dwelling units in there, you know, pop some stickers in there. If you think it needs to just stay the same, leave that map alone. If you think it could use additional commercial, small-scale commercial, large-scale commercial, put your sticker on
Now,
there.
most of these, okay, let's go with zone number 1. Most of it's residential already. So what areas are we talking about? You just want to say, okay, over here, or those are just marshlands
Or is
there.
it just anywhere within the black line? We're not taking,
Yeah,
we're not looking
anywhere.
for specific streets.
Right, it's anywhere within where you think in this context it would be appropriate. So, and we're talking about infill development, right? So this would be taking the
okay.
place of something that has, you know, cycled out. But I think if you would put it in the general area, because there may be things that you think would be acceptable near the hospital that wouldn't be acceptable near the park. Or people have said, you know, maybe it would be nice to have a small store on the way to Fred Howard. You know, you used to have a grocery store in that neighborhood.
I mean, do we use the houses and the commercial within this?
Yes, ma'am. You use whatever you think
Okay.
would be appropriate to go in that area.
In other words, if we were kind of designed into place,
Yeah.
yeah. I'll get down to fighting strength here. Let's go with this.
I'm just gonna give you guys a few minutes to think about that. If you have any questions, just, you know, after you're done with area one, just move through all of them and let me know if you have any questions.
And if we think so, we're doing both the residential and commercial stickers in one map.
On one map, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Got a zone there, Bill. Shame on you.
Should we keep moving through the maps, or are we going to be talking about each one specifically?
Yeah, keep moving through the maps, and if you have any question about any area or anything like that, just let me know.
Sorry.
Nope. Oh, and I do want to mention that it is very important that you put your name on all of these at the, on the front page of each of these exercises on the line. Now I'm doing it.
And with three-story mixed use, basically, it would be like residential, maybe on the second or third floor, and then shops on the first floor.
Usually, yeah.
Boy, you're a sticker fool.
At least they're not little smiley faces.
Mark, cheese and crackers, Mark, stop it.
what I've been doing, because I don't know every street and I don't know where all of these dots should go. In general, I'm putting the dots for that map and what I think is appropriate for that area.
Yeah.
Okay.
That makes more sense.
All right, let's take about 2 more minutes and try and wrap these up. I know it's a lot. So I'm going to say, let's go ahead and put a pause on this at least, so we can walk through exercise number 3. And then we could officially adjourn if we all finish at different paces, you know. We can hang around for a while, but we could officially adjourn so that these guys upstairs can go home. And but we can't talk anymore as a board after we adjourn, so make sure you've spoken up. So the next packet is exercise number 3, which is transportation mapping. The first page in here is, again, Board B, which shows our existing system and proposed improvements. The next sheet has some information about transportation safety and our goals there. And the map shows kind of where fatal or incapacitating injuries are happen. No surprise, it's usually concentrated on 19. The next board shows some, our multimodal transportation district on the left. And that is a district that we already have in place. And then shows some recent and programmed and committed improvements around town. Route 66 limited service. Okay, and so on the next page, you see the map that says walking connections. So what we're asking you to do here is to take your pen and write a number in areas where you think walking connections are needed or improvements for walking conditions are needed. And then on the back of the paper, write the number and explain what you think is needed. So for instance, if you know there's a sidewalk gap somewhere and you think it needs to be filled in, put a number in the general area where it is. Obviously, it's not to the scale where you're going to get the exact street. But say, hey, you know, this area has deficient sidewalks, or the sidewalks are cracking, or there needs to be more crosswalks. There needs to be the little RRFBs, the blinky lights, where, you know, like we have on Tarpon Avenue at the trail, where you can push the button and get the blinky lights to cross. So if you think there's areas like that, so just write a number, and then on the back of the sheet, write out what it is you were thinking. And then do the same thing for the next 2 pages, which are biking and transit. Do we have any questions about this exercise?
I don't know enough about these areas to make that kind of.
Well, make the assessment on the areas that you do know about, and just give us the information that you have.
Can you do anything on county roads?
Yeah, you can. It can be FDOT. It can be county. It can be local. I mean, we can influence. We can't.
Because you know that basically Spring Boulevard that attaches into Craig Park is a county road.
Yes.
And there are no crosswalks at Orange or Tarpon Ave. You have to cross over Tarpon Ave, then cross over.
Yes, and I believe there is some improvements in the work with the county.
Yeah, I reached out to the county last year, and they left me a message about a month ago saying it's back, like whatever they did is now back on this side to exercise whatever they're gonna do, because it's a nightmare.
Yeah, it's not a great intersection.
What do you call those things? You push the button to get yourself to cross?
They're called RRFBs, rectangular rapid flashing beacons. And boy, do you have to be a transportation nerd to know that.
Or to you.
Your name.
I didn't do it on that, I emailed it to you.
Oh, you emailed it.
Yeah, it's electronic.
Okay. Great. Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, I hate your writing.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
See you guys.
take it off? To what?
Your pages are hitting the microphone.
Oh, is that what that was?
Is that what's?
Something moving.
Thank you.
Oh, don't forget I'm not here for the next meeting, I'm on vacation.
Okay, okay.
Bye, guys.
Okay, bye-bye.
Yeah.
Take care. That one, this one I don't know.
Might as well ask that now. Ms. Ryan just informed us that she's not going to be here July 11th. Are you three going to be here for, are you sure you're going to
If
be
you
here?
know tonight.
If you know tonight that you're not going to be here,
Oh, the 11th?
yes.
Yeah, I'll be here.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, let me just double check. I think we talked about that,
Because otherwise we won't have a quorum.
right. Yeah, I should be able to be here.
Okay, wonderful.
Want to call the meeting?
Yeah, if you don't have any further discussion.
Anybody have anything else to say?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Okay, it's 8:15. I call this meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sounds good.
Okay, thanks.